Welcome to the second episode of VS Mall 2017 Recaps from Reality TV Warriors, where the fun never stops. My name is Michael Harmstone, and joining me as always is the Canadian who I can guarantee knows a very high prime number, Logan Saunders.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. We are back once more, and I'm actually currently a little bit distracted by the Ballers Bar Discord because everyone is currently speculating what we're actually going to be doing at the end of the year. Hi guys, it's November now. You've found out finally. Little bit of admin on the Baldur's Bar subject from last week. I did say that the high score on the suspect list was only about 40. It was actually 77, I looked it up. So that's what you've kind of got to achieve this season with your speculations. You got to try and beat 77 points. You get 10 points for getting them all number one every week.
Oh, okay.
I will be working out what your score would have been had you done the suspect list each week.
Right. Wonder if there should be somebody who just tries to always put the same person as the mole every single season. It'll take about a decade, but at least once they'll get the highest score possible.
And yet another very interesting episode. I do remember this one being quite a fun one, to be fair.
Yeah, this is one of the best episodes of the mole I've seen.
I think it might have been about 18 months ago. We kind of half discussed, instead of doing sort of old seasons, doing here's one episode of a season and why it was so awesome. This one would have been the Oregon one, I think. Because I think even though there are ridiculous kind of divisions again and people being missing for a day, you have that laser game, which I think is probably the best laser game they've ever done. Just in terms of the entire vibe of it. And, you know, let's be honest, Imanuelle carries that entire challenge. But the rest of the challenge is so much fun as well.
Yeah, I was thinking nowadays by Vidum standards, if you have some sort of twist that carries over for multiple tasks within an episode or across multiple episodes, that usually means a double elimination is coming right near the end of the game. And luckily that wasn't the case here. It all got contained within the same episode, and only one person went home.
I can confirm there are no double eliminations in this season.
I figured otherwise we probably wouldn't be doing this season.
No, we wouldn't, you're right. But there are no double eliminations in this season. There is one non-elimination episode. It's pretty standard, I would say. There's one thing that I think is going to confuse you when you see it, but every episode, apart from one, does have an elimination.
Well, yeah, if it's always 9 episodes each season and they always have 10 people, I kind of figure they have to do one non-elim.
It's a reasonably standard structure for the season, at least. So previously, 4 contestants found helicopter tickets to Portland, giving them a head start to earn themselves exemptions. They did find them, and the other 6 started as they meant to go on by winning the first €2,500 to the pot. They then watched as Art chatted to the helicopter 4, finding out about the exemptions and earning themselves the right to void one of them. The helicopter group had to choose whether to hand in their exemptions to save the rest of the group, or send someone home. In the end, 3 of the 4 chose personal safety, and the 4th person, Vincent, suffered both the humiliation of avoided exemption and being sent home first. Art says that the group is sharp from day one, bonds are being made, but how long will they last? No one can trust each other. The mole seems like such an ideal candidate that no one has a clue who they are. And I don't know whether this actually was a group decision or not, but 7 of the 9 people are wearing sunglasses in the family photo, and it feels like something they've coordinated.
I didn't even really notice the sunglasses.
Yeah, everyone apart from Yvonne are wearing sunglasses. Jeroen has his on his head. The other 7 all are actually wearing them.
You can't even say, like, oh, the mole mustn't be wearing glasses.
The mole does not lie with their eyes necessarily in this season. It's the one reference I will make to that season repeatedly. And the episode title is Accommodating.
Migand.
We don't even get any kind of pre-episode preamble. We get a bit from Art, and then it's straight into day 3 in Oregon City. We get some wonderful B-roll of the baby seals. And then we go straight to the first challenge. Have I told you my seal story? And no, it isn't about the guy who sang Kiss from a Rose before you start singing it. When I was in Alaska in 2014, actually, right after we met up for the first time, we were in Ketchikan, which is the salmon capital of the world. And we were stood on this kind of wooden bridge over the river. And a seal, for literally a second, popped its head up with a salmon in its mouth, popped straight back down as I was about to take a picture of it.
Oh man, if this was Pokemon Snap, you would have lost points.
I know. I would have failed my Pokemon Snap had it been a Seal, SEEL, rather than SEAL. But I was so annoyed. I'm still annoyed, nearly 10 years later, that I couldn't get that picture properly.
It's like, oh man, I would have had a Dugong with a Magikarp in its mouth.
Have you been looking into getting a Nintendo Switch by any chance?
Yes, I have.
I thought you might have. So they are in an industrial estate filled with danger signs, rust, and metal. And they're at the Blue Heron Paper Mill. It was the first industry in Oregon. They can earn up to €3,500 here. There are 7 assignments to complete, and they have an hour. Each task requires 2 people.
Do they have blue herons in Europe?
I don't think so. I've never heard of Blue Heron before.
Yeah, that's definitely like because we definitely have blue herons in where I live in town. We had a restaurant called the Blue Heron for years and years before it changed its name. So I'm thinking, that could just be like that could be a West Coast thing.
I think it is a West Coast thing.
So I was thinking, because when they mentioned Oregon, I'm like, I wonder if it's just a regional thing and it doesn't really exist anywhere else in the world.
Yeah, I've never heard of Blue Heron Paper. Outside of this episode, obviously. So they have to make 3 pairs and 1 trio. The trio is Thomas, Imanuelle, and Yvonne. Imanuelle immediately wanted to go with Thomas, and Sigrid and Sanna, Roos and Joachim, who had absolutely no strategy at all, and Jeroen and Diedrich are the pairs. And we get a couple of wonderful views of the graffiti, including Roos passing some graffiti saying, "Read it, bitch," which I feel like might have been an instruction from Art, given how close it was to their actual challenge there.
And then Thomas sees a "You will die" sign.
I had forgotten about the graffiti, honestly. I was very amused by the "Read it, bitch" sign, but I didn't remember Thomas talking about "You will die," which is cheery stuff.
It's kind of funny because, like in the States in the early 2000s, they had the No Child Left Behind Act, which made it so everyone kept reading at the same level, but no one could get super advanced in reading. It's like the next step to that campaign is called "Read It, Bitch." Like, I don't remember that being passed into law.
It's one step up from Dolly Parton's Imagination Library, isn't it? It goes from the Imagination Library to No Child Left Behind to "Read it, bitch" for young adults.
No, Oregon.
And Yvonne says she was unlucky. Her episode 1 mole was executed. Luckily for her, Thomas was her backup mole, so she wanted to go in a group with him.
She really likes to align with her suspects.
She really does, but it's not actually a bad tactic. Because if you suspect someone, it's the best place to be able to keep an eye on them and befriend them so you get more information in the downtime and stuff. I really don't begrudge her for doing this. I think, unlike Vincent, Yvonne, yes, she was stupid to go all in at the end of the episode, but Yvonne at least had a good head on her shoulders and knew what the tactics should have been, even though she was just too easily tempted.
Yeah, it's amazing just how like this is we're still gonna see this happen in season 21, or I guess technically 22, where players are still going straight ticket on one person early on in the game for like the first 3 or 4 rounds, and you keep thinking, how do they keep doing this? They know you're not. They know this is a terrible, terrible strategy, and yet they keep falling into this trap.
As of the time of recording, it's less than a week and a half since we did a very long bit on how many suspects you should have at each stage of a process. And I'm not rehashing that rant again, but you should easily, up until Final 7, have 3 suspects. That is absolutely fine. At least 3, that is.
I'm trying to think, was it Joachim who said that he had 6 questions on 3 different people?
Yeah, Joachim went on 3 different people in this one, and he did 6 on one person, 6 on another, and then 8 on the last one, I think.
Yeah, like that's pretty standard strategy with 9 people left on a 20-question quiz.
Yeah, as much as I obviously smack my forehead at Joachim a lot in these first 2 episodes, both times Joachim has had the correct tactic of how to survive a test. You just play the odds, you split it between 4 people originally, you split it between 5 people, you split it between 3, you never go lower than 3 until you get down to like final 6, final 7, and then you reduce it again, and you keep looking at more people, and then you reduce it again as you get closer to the end.
And it's up to you whether you don't even go down to one suspect until final 4 or final 3.
Yeah, I wouldn't go down to one suspect until final 4.
Yeah, because it seems like we've seen the evidence over the past several seasons that we've covered that having multiple suspects really saves you in this game, and that having just one suspect any earlier than final five, it spells nothing but trouble.
Yeah, I say this as someone who is so easily tempted with this sort of stuff. When I did the chase, I actually had to talk myself out of just gambling for the sake of gambling, just because, I'm never going to see that much money again, potentially in one go. I'm so easily tempted with this sort of stuff, but with the mole, you have to be sensible. And whilst it's fun to go, I'm going to go straight ticket. If I'm right, then I've got a ticket to the final no matter what. As much as it's fun to do that, at Final 9, you only have a 1 in 8 chance at best of being right.
Yeah.
Just play the odds. It's not hard.
Oh, yeah, you have to be very disciplined on the mole, I think. Which is probably like if they had to choose contestants, that's why they probably want to choose contestants who are going to act a bit more crazy and go all in on one person because that's more fun to see. Like, they don't want to cast 10 people who know how to play the mole perfectly. Otherwise, you can't get people such as Stine, or you could even argue Olche on a season, or most of the Georgia cast, since so many of them do really, really mess up.
Appropriately given what Art said last week, haste trips you up. Do not be hasty. Have a sit down, breathe, be patient with yourself. Don't think you have to find the mole by now. Just keep an eye out, and the mole will appear.
Yeah, because even if you spread between 3 people, over the next couple rounds, you could very well lose a couple of those suspects anyway.
Yeah. There's Joachim and someone else, I can't remember who it is, who basically say in this test at the end of the episode, I'm playing the odds on this. I'm just being sensible. And that is the tactic to survive in this game. One more test, and the next round could be the one where you work out who the mole is.
The American version is notorious for the eventual winner to lose their main suspect at Final Four or Final Five, and they're always like, "Well, I'm glad I didn't go all in on one person and up until this point."
It just absolutely blows my mind how people can be so easily tempted to just go, I know exactly who it is, I'm just going to take a gamble. Because if you have the instinct to do that, you end up like Remco, or you end up like Yvonne in this episode. But the tactic, if you really want to do that, is do it with your bond. Say, I'm between two people, you're between two people, let's both go all in on one of them. If we both survive, then we're on the right lines. If only one of us survives, we can rule someone out. I mean, it's mercenary, but it's the only way to actually survive if you're going to go all in and be stupid, which she was in the end.
Or what they should do is all 10 of them get together and say, "Okay, each person just pick one person you think is all 10 of us. Let's go straight ticket."
I think that would be ruled out. You've mentioned this before. I think that they would rule that out because it's not fun TV.
Granted, only one person can go home. So maybe you split them into little pairs each week. You go in on this person, then you two go all in.
I think if producers got a whiff of that, they would shut it down immediately and go, this is stupid.
That's Forbidden 28 or something like that.
So, Roos nearly walks past the first assignment. They have to type in the code that is spray painted on the wall to earn €500. Roos has to follow a yellow line on the floor to find the laptop to type it into. Joachim completes his code and gets no response. He heads to the laptop, and Roos has completely disappeared. He talks on the walkie-talkie, not realising that hers is sitting right next to the laptop. What would you do in that situation if you were Joachim?
I'd be wondering what the hell is going on.
But from a challenge point of view, assuming Joachim's not the mole here, from a challenge point of view, what I would do is just run between them and try and complete it myself. Or call someone from the group of three and go, someone needs to stand at this laptop, please, to complete this challenge.
I think I'd be in too much shock that my partner suddenly disappeared that I would probably just be like, okay, I'll just finish this challenge myself and then tell everybody what happened.
Yeah, you definitely need to finish that challenge because he basically just gives up on it and walks away and costs them €500 as a result.
Yeah, it's tough to say what a lot of people would do with that in that position, just because that doesn't really happen in a Vidum challenge. They don't kidnap your partner halfway into a task like that. Because we watched a lot of Mole over the past few years, and I can't think of a scenario where that's happened, where you start a challenge in a pair, you work on it, and then boom, you have no idea where your partner went.
This is the 8th mole season we've covered in the past 2 years now.
That's what I mean. I'm scanning my brain through all the challenges we've covered as of late and all the ones I know from the American version. And if they have, it's very, very rare to just pluck people away without warning, without telling the contestants halfway into a challenge. Usually there's some sort of notification, not like, oh, I guess we'll just eventually wait for some news about this.
Even 4 years later, there is still no explanation to the rhyme or reason of stealing these 3 people. There's absolutely no rhyme or reason to it. Still, no one has ever explained why they were picked.
That's right, we never do find out. My guess is it was probably a combination of criteria. A, it had to be when the person was very much alone. B, they had to be in close proximity to the white van to be snuck away. Where it's like, okay, all they have to do is run 50 feet to run out the store. And then C, there had to be some sort of criteria for each of the 7 tasks that can lead to someone being taken away. Like, say, if Jeroen touches the word, I don't know, if he touches the word value or something like that, boom, he's taken out of the game.
Do you think if you're in the position of the mole, you would want to get kidnapped?
That's a tough one because you do have control over €1,000 at the end of the episode.
I would assume the mole got a choice. That's the only thing. I think, without it being explained to us, either the mole got a choice whether they got kidnapped, or the mole got a choice of who got kidnapped. Because that would make more sense rather than it just being kind of random.
Yeah, I mean, it is more money overall. Like, when we get into the laser game, each person only gets control over €500 during the laser game, but for the kidnapping, they get control over €1,000. So maybe you do get kidnapped, but there is more attention on you since you're in a much smaller group.
Yeah, I don't know. I think on balance, the mole probably doesn't want to be kidnapped because they have potentially control over €3,500 here if they can mess up enough, and they also have control over up to 2,750. I think it was in the laser game, but I don't know. It feels like the mole can't impact anything like the first or the second challenge that much, unless they manage to sneak away from their partner and screw up all the other challenges.
Yeah. And then I imagine as a viewer, you're not paying too much attention to the rest of the task. You're wondering too much what the hell has happened to the 3 people.
Oh yeah, you are.
All those scenes, was it Sigrid and Sane trying to work that typewriter was hilarious.
It was, but the problem is it wasn't very user-friendly in terms of the audience. Like, I have no idea what Sigrid's logic puzzle was about chicken nuggets. I have no clue what it was. The history of the paper mill I can kind of get because it was in English anyway, but I have no clue what Sigrid's chicken nugget task was all about. Obviously, she had to answer a question to earn €250 because mathematically that works, but I have no idea what the rest of it was.
McDonald's. Just type in McDonald's as your answer.
So Jeroen and Diedrich find the second challenge. They have a screen in front of them with words that will appear. They have to pull those words down from a clothesline that is around the corner. And once the words start appearing on the screen, they will not stop. Diedrich volunteers to read the words out, and Jeroen will be on the clothesline. Sigrid and San advance the third challenge, which is 2 typewriters, in which they will have to recreate the history typed on one typewriter for €250 on one of them, and on the other, they have to answer a logic puzzle about chicken nuggets.
Does that typewriter use the same key for the number 1 and the letter L like in The Amazing Race 19?
I would assume no. I would assume it was a complete keyboard rather than the one that was found at Margaret Mitchell's house.
Margaret Mitchell's keyboard is one of a kind. I like how Santa even shows Sigrid how to load paper into a typewriter. It's like complete generation gap there.
Yeah, you have to remember, typewriters might still be modern in Canada, but they're not modern in most of the rest of the world.
Have you ever used a typewriter, Michael?
I don't think I have.
It's kind of funny because my aunt has an antique one that she always had in her living room. It was never used, but as a kid, it was always fun to just press random keys on the typewriter. Like there was never any paper in it, but you would just see I don't even know what you would call that, the needle of the key. But when you press the key, you see the needle fly up, and I always thought that was really cool. And then my sister used to have a typewriter for when she went to school. Granted, I don't think she would have had to use one for very long because it's not until probably close to 15 years ago that people would start using laptops in school?
Yeah, but you don't immediately go from typewriters to laptops, surely.
No, you'd have like desktop computers, but you couldn't really have desktop computers in the classroom unless you're in a computer lab. It's not like you can go to a random lecture at university and and set up a desktop computer in that time.
Inked ribbon is the technical term on a typewriter.
Wow, I would have not have guessed that. But yeah, we had one stored away somewhere. I assume we've thrown it out by now because that thing probably hasn't been used in about 25 years. But my sister did have one for school.
Was it a portable one she had for school, or was it like a big one?
No, it would have been a portable one.
Have you got your books? Yes. Have you got your homework? Yes. Have you got your typewriter? Yes.
Imagine how heavy your backpack would be having a typewriter that you had to bring. My God, that would suck. Because I assume that would have to be quite a bit heavier than a laptop.
Yeah, typewriters are very heavy.
Yeah, because I was thinking my original laptop that I used for university that I took back and forth and had my textbooks in there, my bag felt pretty damn heavy with all of that. On days where you go to 4 or 5 classes in the same day and you bring your laptop for the breaks and to do homework. Oh, that would hurt the back someday, especially walking to get to the bus stop and come back during winter too. That would suck.
You would get a reputation on the bus back from university if you whacked out your typewriter though and started doing your homework, wouldn't you?
Can you imagine?
Typewriter guy's back. Clack 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 clack. Clack.
Can you imagine trying? You know how once you reach the end, you had to push the slider back across? Can you imagine doing that as the bus hits a bump on the road and you're sitting on the back of the bus? There's no way you would be able to type on a bus.
Back of the bus where all the cool kids and the kids with typewriters sit.
I have to Google when people stopped using typewriters at school. Typewriters were still pretty common in workplaces and schools until the early 90s. That makes sense. I mean, I was thinking probably up until Windows 95. And then I remember the original laptops that some teachers got to use in school when I was in the second or third grade. You could not do much on those laptops.
So the next person to disappear is Jeroen, like we wish he would from this season, and, from Renaissance as well. And then the trio finally find a challenge with about 12 minutes left, but it is Diedrich and Jeroen's one. Diedrich finds out that Jeroen's gone and runs to the line to try and remove as many words that he can remember before they start leaving his brain. The trio then move on to another challenge. Sanna keeps getting the typing wrong, and she doesn't even have her glasses with her, even though she does have her typing diploma, hence why Sigrid volunteers for that challenge. Joachim then finds a forklift. He has to build the most expensive screen using the forklift and a set of pallets. It can earn €500. He asks for help from the trio, and Yvonne comes over to help him. Thomas and Imanuelle then find a note saying they can find €500 hidden in the paper loom room, and they end up both being a little bit scared of pigeons. Yvonne then turns up to help Joachim after 6 minutes, and she spots that there are projectors on the other wall for his screens to actually reflect. Then Thomas and Imanuelle start unrolling paper reams. Sanna rings for Diedrich to ask what the highest prime number they know is. Sigrid messes up again, and Sanna suggests that they just hand the original in. Production won't know the difference. The time runs out with 3 people missing. They succeed at just one assignment, which was the forklift one, and earn themselves €450. And Yvonne claims the money. Everyone is then confused about the disappearances again, and Sanna says that she thinks they are on a speedboat with an exemption.
So was Ivana just a very temporary interim treasurer or pennymacer?
I don't know, because I think Joachim ends up taking the money after the laser game.
Yeah, he's like, yeah, you just told me you're going all in on one person. We probably need a new pennymacer before the end of the episode.
I can't remember when they actually have a proper treasurer. It must be fairly soon, you'd hope. So they then head to some food trucks for lunch. Joachim is hurt that Roos abandoned him. It's very suspicious. And Sanna says she thinks that there are yokers in the game and that the missing 3 have them. Something I've noticed about Sanna, I do love her far more than I did in my original watch, as I mentioned last week. When she's doing a confessional, she gets very close to the camera, and it does look like she's the girl from The Ring and coming out of a lake or something.
She's going to start crawling across the table.
Yeah, it's ever so slightly kind of creepy at times when she gets 6 inches away from the camera. She sits far closer for the confessionals than anyone else. And it's something I've noticed. Everyone else seems to be at a kind of normal distance back, and then she seems to be really near to the camera, just staring at you, staring into your soul.
Yeah, she wants a bond with us.
So in the evening, they are taken to a truly iconic challenge, probably the iconic challenge of the season, I'll warn you now, entirely narrated by Imanuelle, as it should be. It is a fun fair, and she screams. And it's the Oaks amusement park, and we are introduced to something that is completely irrelevant for the rest of the episode, the claw-grabbing machine with lots of yokers and a black exemption visible. However, I did pause it on the grabber machine because I always remembered it as this being the one chance for them to get a black exemption. It is the one chance in the entire season where a black exemption can appear. There are no black exemptions for the entire season.
Spoiler!
I mean, there's none even offered for the rest of the season, I don't think. There's definitely none that actually appear. But I paused it on this screen to try and count the number of yokers, which is at least 22 in there, by the way. Someone could have had an absolute field day with that.
Swimming in yokers for the rest of the season, use 4 per episode.
Yeah, someone could have easily got themselves to the finale with that.
Yvonne could have used those 4 yokers.
There's at least 22 in there anyway, at least per my quick maths this afternoon. But there is also not 1 but 2 black exemptions in there, because 1 is a little bit hidden. And there are also not 1 but 2 green exemptions hidden in there, which no one has ever spotted before. It never came up in the commentary in 2017. Nobody spotted that there were 2 green exemptions hidden in that machine as well.
So none of the contestants ever ran by that machine, I guess?
No, they ran by it. We actually see, I think it's Sana run by it at one point during her kind of run on this, but nobody looks in the claw machine.
I guess there was just too much distraction for them to spot it. Production must have been slightly upset about that. They probably wanted that to be a big part of the challenge.
I think they were devastated because I would have loved a scene of someone trying to grab a black or a green exemption given how thin they are with one of the claws. They would have never picked it up. They probably could have picked a yoker up given how wide they are. They're the big, thick yokers, not as thick as in Colombia, but they are the big, thick yokers still. So they probably could have got a yoker or 2 out of it, but they wouldn't have got an exemption or a black exemption.
Would the snipers have had to stop if somebody was using the claw machine?
They would have been protected because where it was, if after the episode you go back and watch, I think it's Sana's run, she does run past them. There's 3 machines. There's a Zoltar machine on the right-hand side, then like a teddy bear machine in the middle, and then the claw grabby one. The claw grabby one is kind of angled away, and there's something protecting you on the left-hand side. So you could have easily run in there, seen there were exemptions or yokers or whatever, and unless someone was directly behind you, they wouldn't have been able to shoot you.
And we also get the Zoltar machine from Big, which made me laugh.
Yeah, America loves Zoltar machines for some reason. I remember seeing one at Santa Monica Pier.
Well, I think it's all because of the movie Big.
I don't think Zoltar had any fortunes for them or anything, and I don't know what the Teddy Bear machine was about either. I would assume there was maybe something hidden around one of them as well, but nobody even came close to investigating the machines as they almost certainly should have.
Yeah, go to the Zoltar machine. I wish to know who the mole is. I wish to know who the mole is.
But yeah, the grabbing machine full of advantages is one of the more memorable shots of this entire season for me, in that nobody spots it. They loaded this thing up with over 20 yokers, and then nothing happens with it. It's one of the biggest production damp squibs ever in mole history, I think. They were so hyped to introduce potentially 26 different advantages in this challenge, and 0 get introduced as a result of this challenge.
And nobody even spots it either, so it's not like contestants can be tormented by who could have possibly found a bunch of yokers or get plagued by it.
No, they were just entirely focused on winning, basically, which is hilarious.
Yeah, it makes you wonder if the mole was in... I mean, you know the answer to it, but I'm sure at the time people were thinking, well, if nobody saw that claw machine, does that mean the mole wasn't at that challenge? Because you think the mole would want to introduce that type of chaos.
Depends who you think the mole is, I guess.
So Art was saying that the guards are trigger happy, and I didn't know that a Skylanders character was guarding the amusement park at night.
Yeah, I don't know why Art said trigger happy in that. As you said last episode, there's a lot of English in these first 2 episodes. including Art at the end of his speech here saying he hopes they have fun in Oaks Park, where the fun never stops. It's just like, I know that this isn't a clue, Art, so why are you saying it? I know it's just kind of adding a bit of charm into the introduction and stuff, but if you were a viewer not knowing who the mole is, like you, I don't know what you'd get out of Art saying where the fun never stops. So Art says that the park is covered in guards, and they are very trigger happy. To earn money, they've got to sneak onto the rides, where they will be safe, and return back to the start point. Each ride can only be ridden once. They will get walkie-talkies and a laser gun, and he hopes that they have fun in Oaks Park, where the fun never stops. This is also the first challenge in the entire season where we don't get a confirmed maximum amount, but I think it was 2,750, based on the values of the rides we saw. If there was any additional rides that we didn't see, then obviously that would change, but as far as I'm aware, it's 2,750. Jochen volunteers to go first and be their scout. He says that there are two things that are very important in this challenge: to find out where everything is, and to report it back to the group, neither of which he succeeds at. He sees a ride of €500 and the first red dots, and he seems to just be pressing and depressing the walkie-talkie button constantly, just doing static, basically. And then he goes radio silent, just like Roos, Diedrich, and Jeroen did. However, he's actually just been on a roller coaster for €500.
Whee!
I think you know the next question I'm going to ask. How would you have dealt with this challenge?
I think I would have tried to be like Imanuelle and use the garbage can as a shield. And yeah, and just try to get one of the higher rides.
You know as well as I do that you are not the best with roller coasters.
Yeah, but I like roller coasters. I'm just I like the thrill of them. They scare me, but it's thrilling.
We would have got a lot of fun reactions to you doing the roller coasters, but quite legendarily, you're not the best with them.
Yeah, but yeah, I would totally be going for either that roller coaster or the zipper. I think who made it to Thomas was on the zipper, I think.
Yeah, Thomas was on the Ferris wheel rotatey thing.
Yeah, we call that the zipper here, where it's like you're in your those Ferris wheel cubes and it keeps rotating and rotating. You have no idea how much worse that is in person.
I have witnessed something very similar in Disneyland, actually. The big Ferris wheel in California Disneyland in California Adventure. There are static booths and there are wonky booths where they will swing, and it is horrible. I think I went on a static one and I still wasn't entirely comfortable with it.
Yeah, the rotating ones are just like, holy hell, the shoulder straps better hold me in.
I am absolutely fine with rides as long as I feel safe. I'm not sure I would have felt safe on that one.
Actually, when I was on the zipper, because I did it a couple years ago, I had like my phone and wallet in my pocket, and I thought it would be a bit more stable, but I actually had to have my hands in my pockets to keep everything from falling out onto the floor of the zipper. I'm like, oh, I didn't imagine the gravity and rotation of it would make everything in my pockets this eager to fall out.
So Joachim hides behind a planter and just tries to shoot the snipers. He has long legs and is quite fit and decides to run back to the team. He then, about 2 seconds later, gets comprehensively shot.
He was wide open.
Yeah, he makes absolutely no attempt to hide any of his vulnerable points. And even better, by the time he comes back to the group, he's forgotten all the information anyway.
Yeah, he's the worst scout ever, I think is what they said. He's like, there's a ride over there. All right, Santa, you're good to go. Yeah, you're welcome. You're never gonna go first again.
Sana is second. She hates fun fairs. She hates rides. She doesn't understand why anyone would do a roller coaster. She is not happy with her situation.
She says your guts end up in your toes.
Obviously, I remember this challenge for Imanuelle. I had forgotten how good Sana is in this challenge as well. She is so peed off that she has to do this challenge. She ends up finding a €250 carousel, but skips that and decides to go for a big value one, as you only live once. And her saying you only live once probably dates this season a little bit. She picks one called the Screaming Eagle, which looks deeply unpleasant, I have to say. And she says that at that point, you could either put her on this ride or kill her, she wouldn't really mind. And in probably the most disturbing moment of the entire episode, we get some really guttural screams from her.
It was worse than the screams that we heard from the carousel.
Yeah, she's deeply troubled by this ride, I think.
It was like an out-of-body experience for her. Almost like an exorcism.
It really was, wasn't it? I might have to actually make it the stinger at the end of the episode of Sana just gutturally screaming.
Yeah, and everyone, because she thought, I thought I was throwing up when I opened my mouth, but it was really just this loud, piercing noise. And everyone else could hear her screaming too.
We're used to Amazing Race especially doing a Screaming Eagle sound effect, but I'm not sure that this is the Screaming Eagle sound effect that anyone expected.
Somebody should have recorded my screams on the zipper.
Yes, they should. Can we make that a thing next time you go to a fun fair when everyone opens again? Just get someone to record your screams for me, please. Because I will make podcast gold out of that.
Yeah, because I had to ride the zipper with my friend Amanda, and then she was just laughing the whole time because I just could not stop screaming on the zipper.
Sana says she doesn't want to get shot. She went through all that hell for nothing if she does get shot. She brings home €500, and we get a Z snap for our troubles. Now the main event, because even Art can't stop himself teasing Imanuelle after this challenge, given how brilliant her performance is.
She goes full-on role-playing here.
She has, I would say, probably the most fun I've ever seen anyone have on a challenge on Vidum.
I die, you die.
She has a blast. This is the challenge she was made of, and in fact, you know how I love to use the gif of Imanuelle from the challenge with the confessional of her going rat-tat-tat-tat-tat. I don't think I've ever told you this. That is actually an official gif. It is the only time I've ever seen Vidum Production produce an official gif of something from the show. Was Imanuelle's confessional going rat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat.
Well, like her, every single confessional during this challenge is in all caps for her.
It really is. It is just so brilliant. It's brilliantly edited, and that's not something I can necessarily say for more modern Vidum seasons. It's brilliantly edited, her confessionals here. It's brilliantly edited the entire scene. She's just a born star in this episode.
I've never seen anybody earn €500 in a more entertaining and extreme way in contrast to the tasks they were doing. Because sure, everyone gets excited over the annual laser game, minus no laser game in Georgia. But like Imanuelle starts out, she stumbles and completely falls down right away. And you think she has no chance of getting anywhere. And then you think, oh, she's just gonna want to give up. And then no, she starts firing like crazy. I die, you die. And then there's this one point where she says, I have to run for the next 3 seconds. And for some reason, I can't figure it out, she decides to scream at the top of her lungs as she runs the 3 seconds to get to the ride. And I'm thinking, how did she not get shot during that time? The snipers would know where she is. Just follow the person screaming at the top of their lungs.
I have to admit that I worried before rewatching this episode I may have overhyped Imanuelle in terms of entertainment value, because I do know that I talk about her a lot. It's mainly because of this challenge in this episode. I think she lived up to everything I said and more, being honest. As I said to you earlier, I think you now understand why Imanuelle is the best character of this season for pretty much anyone who's watched it. And you understand why she's so beloved and why it's a real shame she couldn't come back for Renaissance.
And then she uses the garbage can as a moving shield like you see in an episode of 24, because I think that's the last time I've seen that used, where they use the SWAT shield and then you come in and fire the beanbags at the guy to knock him down. Here, instead of the SWAT shield, it's the freaking garbage can that she moves along with it on wheels to get herself back to the start. And then she says, I ran like the American police were after me. And I was thinking, oh boy, 4 years later, that confessional is very yes. I'm like, oh boy.
As much as obviously I'm going to give her loads of credit for being really entertaining in this, she is the only one who actually has a really good tactic in this. Not just with the using the bin as a shield, which Sigrid then copies, but she uses her time on her ride to start spotting the snipers and start planning her exit route.
Yeah, because Joachim says he was trying to keep an eye out for the snipers and he completely forgot.
Whereas Imanuelle does not even enjoy the ride necessarily. She just constantly looks around to look for the snipers and see where they're hiding, which is what you should do in this challenge. You should always be 2 steps ahead on this challenge, because that's how you then get back and run like the American police are after you with €500 in your pocket.
But what a turnaround from just stumbling, falling flat on her face at the very start of her run, and then just completely dominate with really smart and over the top strategies to get herself back and earn €500. I feel like those €500 shouldn't even be for the pot. I think Art at the end of the challenge said, "You know what, Imanuelle, keep those €500. That's all for you."
I think Imanuelle is amazing during the season, but this is by far her best showing in terms of entertainment. She commands the attention of the screen every opportunity in this challenge. I cannot heap enough praise on her for this challenge, because she carries it. She elevates this from a really good idea with the laser game to being an excellent challenge. And it's almost entirely because of her. So Thomas is fourth. He plans to get the €750 ride. He says he's not easily scared, so he's going for it. He plays a soldier in a drama, so he should be quite good at this. And he ends up going to a Ferris wheel, essentially, for €250. He gets rather nauseous.
Yeah, the zipper is known for being the most, because I think that's the most extreme ride we have at our local fair each year, which sadly has now been canceled 2 years in a row, and is the biggest. It's actually the biggest tourist attraction that we have each year, because it's people from all over come just for this fair. And yeah, the zipper is always the ride that everyone comes on and gets absolutely frightened. People usually ride it just once or twice and like, no, never doing that again. Or after they reach a certain age, they're like, no, because they'll probably just throw up or something on it. And yeah, I was surprised. Oh man, somebody's actually going to do the zipper. Is he going to make it? And he does. But yes, it is. You do get very, very dizzy by the end of it.
I don't understand why this was the same value as the carousel.
I guess maybe it had to do more with location.
Yeah, it can only have had more to do with location, because that is way more unpleasant than doing a carousel.
Yeah, you have no idea.
There's no better way to put it. That's just way more unpleasant than doing a carousel. Sigrid is the fifth person up. We cut immediately to her being on a horrid spinning ride for €750. And surprisingly, she enjoys it. Not sure I would have. She uses Imanuelle's tactic of hiding behind a bin. She says her mum will laugh at her because she has mysophobia, the fear of germs. She tries to stay away from bins in her real life, but it's her only salvation here. And a sniper gets her, and it's basically like a war death.
Yeah, she didn't even get to do this challenge with huge yellow ugly gloves. I was surprised how little we saw of Sigrid's run.
Yeah, she's the only one who we don't see run out, so she must have had absolutely no interesting content before she got to the ride, even though she probably had the longest run.
That kind of sums up Sigrid so far in general through 2 episodes. We really haven't gotten much content from her. The only really amusing one was Sana saying that she is too young to know how to use a typewriter.
Yeah, she's very much a character in the context of other people, I think.
And Yvonne does not last long. We pretty much see her. I think we see her entire run.
Yeah, Yvonne's did make me laugh because she said she looks super cool. She gets shot very quickly while trying to get to the €250 carousel, which we know from other runs is about 10 feet from the start point. It's literally the first ride they pass.
And that made her climb to near the top of my suspect list, because I submitted my suspect list right before the execution. I'm like, oh, that's one person I can rule out. But yeah, it's funny. It's funny with Yvonne's run though. Like, these are all my notes for it. Yvonne is the sixth and last person to go. She says, "I looked super cool." There's someone behind her. She gets hit.
End of show.
Yeah. I'm thinking, wonder if she even lasted over a minute there, or if it really was just a matter of, say, 30, 45 seconds.
I think it was very rapid, given we know how close everything was when we saw the other runs. I don't think she lasted very long. So Art teases them when they all reunite. They earned €1,250 of $27.50 for the challenge. He says he's proud of them, but tells them absolutely nothing about the other three. And Joachim says afterwards that he's convinced that the snipers were the other three.
That's what I had in my notes too, right before Joachim said. I'm like thinking, it makes sense if the other three were snipers and they were playing for Jokers or another rice jelly. But that is not the case. They were, in fact, a couple of them. One of them was very, very, very far away from this amusement park.
So Imanuelle Opens her room. Roos's stuff is still there, but she's not, and it's the same with Jeroen and Diedrich for Sanna and Thomas. They wake up on day 4 still as a group of 6, and their breakfast drinks intrigued me, I'll have to be honest, because we see a couple of times that Yvonne had a Snapple.
I wrote down that too. Here, you're on the West Coast in Canada or the States if you see a bunch of people buying Snapples at a cafe.
Do you think she enjoyed it more or less than Mallory from Amazing Race 18?
I think less. I don't know if you can enjoy it more than Mallory did.
Did you also notice what Jochen was drinking? Presumably about 8, 9 o'clock in the morning.
Was it a beer?
It was a Coke, I think.
Ugh.
You know as well as I do, I have a very sweet tooth. Even I don't drink Coke for breakfast.
Yeah, I've never been a big soda person. Well, Coke is my least favorite soda. I just do not like how it feels on my teeth afterwards, so I probably stopped drinking Coca-Cola about when I was about 10 or 11 years old. I'm thinking this soft drink isn't for me.
Whereas I probably stopped drinking it about 10 or 11 minutes ago. They say they're still confused about what's going on. Sanna suggests, as a group, that they do not give the other 3 any information, not that they went to the fair, not that it was a laser game, not that they earned any money, absolutely nothing.
Maybe Joachim is one of those people who just there's people where they say, "Oh, my favorite drink is water," and then there's other people that say, "Oh, I might drink water might have a glass of water once every few days." He could be one of those people.
Like me.
You only have water once every few days?
I don't have water that often. I drink a lot of milk. Not kind of Mike Wozniak levels necessarily, but I drink a lot of milk.
Interesting.
So Art tells us that Roos, Jeroen, and Diedrich have disappeared. He is in a suit, and he says the mole will do what they do best in this group, divide and conquer, before he walks into a courthouse. And they are in the Gus J. Solomon courthouse for the final challenge. Yvonne says she's very excited to be in an American courthouse, just like on TV.
Probably was used on TV.
Yeah, I meant to actually Google whether it had been used for any filming locations. I'd be very surprised if it hadn't.
Oh, here we go. IMDb has a thing just for filming locations. It was used in not Hunted, but The Hunted, which is a 2003 film starring Tommy Lee Jones and Benicio del Toro. And it was used in an episode of the TV show Grimm, and it was used in 2017. It was used after it was used in Vidum.
I'd sort of assumed that it probably had been used in TV and film before, just because it's likely that the permits would have been super easy to get to film there.
Considering Oregon has to find a way to compete with California or Washington State, I'm going to guess permits are a lot cheaper in Oregon.
Yeah, permits will be a lot cheaper, but they'll have the infrastructure at that courthouse already to go, well, we can accommodate lots of filming here. And we even get a look at portraits of President Obama and Vice President Biden, which dates this filming ever so slightly, especially as this episode would have aired 6 days before Trump's inauguration. And yes, I did actually have to look up the release date of this episode.
What helps with it, too, is that when Diedrich's in the hotel, we do see footage of him watching Trump on a news channel. It's kind of funny because I just finished watching all 7 seasons of Parks and Recreation, and Biden makes multiple cameos in that show while he's vice president.
He does indeed. So Art speaks to them not as candidates, but as members of the jury. The other 3 will be on trial and will tell a story about the last 24 hours. One of them is lying. If they pick the correct guilty party, they will earn 1,000 euros to the pot. If they incorrectly accuse someone, then the liar will get an exemption. Sigrid goes no, like she's Vincent, and Sanna looks genuinely pissed off. It's made even better by the fact that obviously Sanna at this point does not know that there was a claw grabbing machine filled with yokers, black exemptions, and green exemptions.
I like how even Dutch contestants hate jury duty as much as Americans do.
I sort of like the idea with the claw grabbing machine that someone could have monopolized all of the advantage in them this season. Because I think there's one more exemption I think handed out for the rest of the season. And there is, I think, 2 or 4 more yokers handed out for the rest of the season. There's really not much in the way of advantages left in this season. So I kind of like the idea that someone could have got all 22 yokers out, both of the green exemptions, both of the black exemptions, and run the season as a result of this.
Yeah, just be like, wait, why are you taking so long on your turn? Hold on, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 2 green exemptions, 1 black exemption. Okay, I'm coming back now.
Genuinely, with 7 tests left, you could have been exempt officially for 2 of them and played 4 Jokers for each of the remaining 5 and get yourself to the final and be essentially unbeatable.
I have the Deathly Hollows of Vidum.
It is basically the most overpowered challenge possible, is a claw machine of all things. So Jeroen is the first suspect. We know from Renaissance he's a terrible liar, and he says he was taken from the assignment with Diedrich and told that he would be performing with the band as Elvis Presley that evening. He had to prepare a set list and then memorise the lines. He got to dress up like Elvis and did 5 songs, which the crowd loved. That's definitely a lie. And he says he received quite a few compliments for the first time ever. Roos is second. She says her walkie-talkie was slapped out of her hand and then she was guided into her van, and she was told that she was flying to Vegas. Sigrid says she doubts anyone had time to fly to Vegas. Roos wanted a picture with Elvis, so went to the strip. When she crossed the street, she saw Elvis with a bag and a suit on. She got 2 Elvises for the price of 1. She did drink and wanted one of the huge pink cocktails. Yvonne thinks that she lied.
What's funny is because Roos tries really hard to look like she could possibly be lying when she's telling the story. And because what I was thinking when I was watching it was, let's see, Jeroen seems to be telling the truth. Roos is telling the truth because she was trying to pretend to be nervous, and she was rubbing her face, rubbing her nose. I'm thinking, she's trying too hard to be deceitful here. Because I was thinking, do the people who tell the truth, do they get something out of it? Do all 3 of them get some sort of incentive? Because only one person really benefits from telling the truth but get picked out as a liar.
I was thinking that as well, because there is absolutely no incentive for, in this case, Jeroen or Roos, to not tell the truth. Because if they make it blatantly obvious that Diedrich is lying, then the group as a whole get €1,000. Assuming neither of them are the mole, then that really is a helpful thing for them, surely. They have no incentive to help Diedrich here at all.
No, because they can't get an exemption. It's like, well, as long as the jury believes them, the pot gets €1,000, and if the jury doesn't believe them, then somebody else is immune, and their chances of going home get higher.
Exactly. They end up, if they make themselves suspicious, they end up actively sabotaging themselves.
And not in terms of money, but also in terms of a higher risk of being executed. I was just really surprised with how much Roos was trying to pretend to be trying to pretend like she was lying. Unless Roos and Jeroen thought something might be in it for them, thinking, well, if we trick the jury, maybe we get something out of it, but they just didn't know.
So Diedrich is the last person up. He had to pack for a night and then received an envelope after an hour telling him he was going to Crater Lake National Park in southern Oregon. He went up a mountain and saw the volcano lake, then went downstream in a kayak and said he saw a beaver in its natural habitat, as well as 8 baby beavers. And he's described as believable.
What's funny is I wrote in my notes, suspect number 3. Diedrich went to the Volcano National Park, whatever it was called. He saw canoes and kayaks. My next line is, I think Diedrich is lying. About 2 or 3 sentences into a story, I wrote down, I think Diedrich is lying. And then at the end, I'm thinking, he is being way too detailed. No way he is telling the truth.
Have you ever seen a baby beaver?
I don't know about a baby beaver, but because beavers live in the creek right by my old house. There are lots of beavers that live in the town, hence the beaver being the national animal of Canada. But I was thinking, I don't know if beavers hang out near volcanoes.
So in the end, Sanna votes for Jeroen, Thomas, Sigrid and Yvonne vote for Roos, and Joachim votes for Diedrich. We don't know who Imanuelle said, not that it matters. They officially accuse Roos, which is wrong. It was actually Diedrich who lied, and that means that they earned nothing of €1,000 for the challenge, 1,700 of 6,250 for the episode, and 4,200 of 9,750 for the season so far.
Did you notice how the voting went down? Did you notice who abstained from voting?
Well, Imanuelle was the only one we didn't see vote.
Yeah, she abstained. She was like China at the UN.
Given that she was the one writing the verdicts down, I'm assuming she was the foreman of the jury, basically, so she would have only voted in the event of a tie. She's basically head of household. So unsurprisingly, Jeroen did actually do the Elvis thing, and we get to see it for our sins. It was just as terrible as you'd imagine. Roos had nothing to hide. She did drink and gamble in Vegas, and doesn't even seem to have changed her top.
Well, all of her stuff was in her room. Imanuelle saw it.
That's the main clue that Diedrich was lying, because Diedrich said that he got to Pat for a night, whereas we already had it established that all of their stuff was still there. And in fact, Diedrich was still wearing the same t-shirt he was in the previous day.
And to do stuff like kayaking and canoeing and seeing wildlife, you have to do that pretty early in the morning. In fact, there's a lot of wildlife ventures around the planet where either you go like right at sunrise or right at sunset.
I will defer to your experience of going looking for beavers early in the morning. So then we get our traditional Bond catch-up scenes. Thomas and Diedrich have a Bond catch-up. Diedrich says he lied for the exemption, but everything he said to Thomas previously was true. They agree to extend their bond and talk later to exchange information. Joachim and Sigrid have a catch-up as well. He doesn't have the room number of Roos and Imanuelle. Sigrid says that she doesn't have to watch what she says around him, which makes him trustworthy. Roos and Imanuelle exchange information as well. Imanuelle admits to her that they made a no-sharing pact as a group of 6, but they didn't agree anything about Roos potentially reading her mole book. Reading is not speaking.
She knows that's a very deceitful loophole, right? Like she's essentially she's breaking the rule there.
That is a Taskmaster loophole, and I am here for it. I mean, every single time Imanuelle is on the screen, it lights up. She is brilliant in the opening 2 episodes of this season so far. I'd forgotten how good she is, and I'd always remembered her as being really good in this episode, but I'd forgotten how good she is in the first 2. She is brilliant in the first 2 episodes. So, it is now time for the test. 20 questions on the identity and actions of the mole. Whoever knows least will go home, except for the mole, who can never go home. Diedrich has an exemption as a result of his duplicity, and the test takes place at Director Park. Thomas says it's his first real execution. He still suspects Jeroen, and Roos and Imanuelle both join him on the list. Imanuelle had 4 suspects, and now it's 6. She says she wants to reduce it back to 4 because 6 is too many. Yvonne suspects Roos because she was pretty good at pretending to lie, and that's why Yvonne thinks she's the mole. Roos plays the odds. She goes for any answer where a majority could be. Joachim is putting the first 6 on Sanna, second 6 on Diedrich, and the rest on Roos. Sanna's observations say Imanuelle is the mole, and Sigrid is also suspicious. Sigrid's on Jeroen because he's unreadable and mysterious. Jeroen says he's completely gambling, he was missing for an entire day, and has to guess as a result. Diedrich played his exemption. Whoever from the remaining 8 made the most mistakes will go home, unless it was a tie, in which case it's on time. And that is the case in this execution. I do have to say, this execution's very public. It is not a quiet place.
I think just because it's Portland, that it doesn't raise too many eyebrows.
You know as well as I do, there are a lot of mole fans in that area of the world. In the US, there are a lot of mole fans.
But in Portland?
I'm not sure about Portland particularly, but I'm really surprised that none of this got leaked, because I don't think it did. I don't think anyone knew they were in Oregon until it got announced.
It's just a book club meeting outside on a nice day.
I would have thought that somebody would have spotted Art and gone, what the fucking hell's he doing in Director Park? That's weird. So Jeroen gets a green screen, and I suspect that Art probably got to stack the green screens because he did get to say Elvis is not leaving the building and was very proud of himself. I've said this on multiple occasions now. You can tell Art has a lot of fun with these executions. He's having a blast. Unlike Rick at times. Rick always seems a little bit serious and miserable, and Art just has a lot of fun with them. Like teasing them at the end of the laser game. Like teasing Jeroen here for being associated with Elvis rather than being a really awful mole.
I can't tell if Diedrich was happy to be stuck in a hotel room for 24 hours doing nothing, or to avoid being labeled as Elvis Presley.
Do you think Diedrich was actually stuck in a hotel room for 24 hours?
I hope not, because that would suck as a victim experience. You're being kidnapped. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? Oh yeah, you're going to hang out and be in this hotel room for 24 hours?
I don't think he was. I think given that all we saw was the exterior of where he was, I suspect he was probably in a fairly scenic location and just got the day to himself. And then they took the B-roll of him lying on a bed watching Trump on CNN.
Maybe he watched a National Geographic special about beavers.
Well, that's the thing. Diedrich's lie probably comes from his work as a science journalist. He probably has been to Crater Lake National Park. He probably has seen beaver in the wild. He would have just drawn on that experience to make it a more believable lie.
Yeah, it's what Leslie Neeson does. Liam Neeson. No, I was thinking Leslie Nielsen. Well, no, wait, no, I combined the two names. Liam Neeson. That's what Liam Neeson does.
So yeah, Jeroen gets green screen, as do Thomas, Roos, and Sana, before Yvonne trusts her instincts, closes her eyes, and leaves.
Everyone just freezes, too. Everyone just doesn't even know how to react at first. Nobody does anything for a solid 3 to 5 seconds. They're like, oh yeah, we should probably give her a hug.
She told Roos that she didn't spread, she had a good feeling about who it was. Thomas says she was a sweet girl and her softness will be missed in the group. She tells Art that she couldn't resist going all in, even though she's seen the show before. Someone else was just a little bit quicker than her. She took the last test quickly, but she slowed herself down a bit this time.
So the first time she went really fast and spread. This time she slowed down and went all in on one person.
One of these things gets you eliminated. I wonder which one it is. So next time, fireworks go off and show messages written in the sand. Sana ignores Diedrich's instructions, and there is a speedy car ride through Portland as part of a very novel challenge. So first things first, who do you think beat Yvonne on time?
That's a good question.
Because as I said to you earlier, we do find this out at the reunion. I'm not going to tell you whether you're right or not, but I'm interested to see who your instinct is on this.
I'll guess Joachim.
Okay, interesting.
No, he spread. I'm gonna guess Imanuelle.
Interesting. We'll find out in 7 weeks' time. Who are your suspects?
So I don't think Jeroen's the mole.
You know Jeroen's not the mole. Stop pretending.
Then so it's Jeroen, Joachim, then Sane, then Imanuelle, then Diedrich, then Thomas, then Sigrid, then Roos.
Yeah, and Yvonne was second.
Yeah, and Yvonne was second.
So my suspects at the time were, in reverse order, Sana, Imanuelle, Joachim, Jeroen, Thomas, Roos, Diedrich, and then Sigrid. So we actually have 2 overlaps again. I swear this isn't rigged, but you had Roos at number 1, I had her at number 3, and you had Sigrid at number 2, and I had Sigrid at number 1. And the top 3 on Bother's Bar that week were Jeroen, Joachim, and Thomas in order.
They're really leaning towards the male mole.
Yep, they really were at this point. And final question of the episode, who is going home next week?
Who's going home next round? Sigrid? And, I know what my final note of the episode was. Yvonne and Vincent are the worst alliance ever. They're the first 2 people gone.
They really are. She didn't learn anything from Vincent, basically, which is hilarious.
It's like, yeah, both of you. I can't recall a time where there was a 2-person alliance and then they're the first 2 people to be eliminated on the mole. Usually, if your ally goes home, you can rule at least 1 person out, but that was not the case here.
So, have you got anything else you want to say about this episode?
Nope.
In that case, thank you for listening to our VS to Mole 2017 recap. We'll be back next week to continue the hunt for another old mole in Oregon. Don't forget you can contact us on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, or Instagram, where we are RTV Warriors, or you can email us on contact@rtvwarriors.com. Logan is on Twitter at Logskwaki, and I'm MJ Harmstone. Thank you as always to Marika for the subtitles, and we will see you next week.
Peace out and just chill till the next flavoring.